So I talked a bit, this is the heading of my entire presentation, and now finally I've got to it. So obviously, like persona design and writing in persona has a lot to do with writing, right? So copywriting and using acknowledgements and the way you use sentences, whether you use really active sentences or passive sentences. But I think over the time that I've been working in this field, personality and the persona you assign has a much more broad effect on how you create your chatbot. So what I mean here is, if you have a really well-defined personality, so if you really have a clear image of who your chatbot is and what they behave like and what their adjectives are, then it will guide you in your conversational writing, but it will also guide you in basically all the other design decisions that you make in the chatbot. And what I mean with this, like, just look at a flow and think you're a customer and go through it, and then think, how is the personality reflected in this flow design? In the number of buttons I'm showing here, in the amount of information that I present in a single dialogue step. So let's look at an example. Let's give them our chatbot has some common character traits. It's empathetic, helpful, and informal. So that's basically, this third one is over here in the Netherlands. This is a big thing. We're all very informal. So, that's often an adjective that comes up. And then we have this initial greeting, and it says, "Hi, I'm the virtual agent for Print Price Company. Please choose an option to start." Now, is this empathetic? Is this, does this make the customer feel like they're going to be helped? Like it'll be a great experience, all those other things. It's just, this isn't working, right? This doesn't suit our chatbot persona. Another example, like really jargony text, right? Please indicate whether you need a variable allotment indicator assessment or a fixed rate proxy assessment. How on earth would I be able to answer this question, right? And we've just said that our chatbot is both empathetic and helpful, right? So this doesn't work. Is this informal, right? So the chatbot's like super informal. So it says, awesome. So you'd like a table for tonight? How many in your party? And then suddenly this user is like, oh, wait, I can't make it tonight. And then the chatbot says, my apologies, I don't understand what you mean. There is a handover option to one of our live chat operators. Hold time is up to 15 minutes. Click handover to proceed. It's like, I see this a lot, right? That the flows are like really well designed, and they're nice, and they're well written, and they're active and stuff. And then all the kind of more mechanical design elements in the chatbot are all like, suddenly it's like almost error 404 does not compute, stuff like that kind of language. So first of all, I would have, just being empathetic and helpful, I would have, when designing this flow, taken into account that somebody at this stage might suddenly realize that they're booking the wrong day, right? So you would actually design the flow differently, so that if they say, wait, stop, wrong, incorrect, no, I can't, that it would say, okay, if tonight doesn't work, which night would you like? So that's, as a design framework, helpful, empathetic. And then if that all doesn't work, then you could say, okay, I don't know what you mean. Would you like to talk to one of my one of the colleagues or chat operators, whatever you call them? And then not have a big red button, just have a yes or no. So continuing in this vein, sometimes we see well-designed chatbots, but then there's a need to present a lot of information, and then persona just disappears, just goes right out of the window. And I get it, right? Because you have this knowledge base and you're creating a dialogue, and then there's this ton of information you have to give, and you're trying to shorten it to make it fit in the bubble, because you've all agreed that you can't have more than 200 words in there, and it just, everything flies out of the window. So a long and dense response here, it's like a simple question: can I keep using my phone when traveling abroad? Simple enough. As a customer, I'm probably aware that this won't have a really, really simple answer. And then it starts really well. It says, great question, happy to help. Hey. And then it goes into business speak. Please ensure you can use the telco app abroad. Also check which zones are covered. The next thing you want to do is check data roaming is enabled on your phone finally. So by now, 90% of our users have abandoned because people cannot read long text like this. It's filled with like jargon that only I would understand. And Michiel, I'll get right back to you on that question. And there's no confirmation, right? To see, I'm giving away the answer. No confirmation to kind of, was this helpful? Did it work? There's no room in this same bubble, so you might add that in the next bubble. Can anyone suggest on how we would solve this particular issue for our chatbot to still be empathetic, helpful, and informal? You can describe your solution in any way you want. It doesn't have to be in official academy speak. Yep, 2 good suggestions. Exactly. Ben and Allison win the prize. Pyramid structure. Yeah. So so the first solution is to look at this language and see whether you can like make it so that like your 8-year-old would understand it, right? But there's always limitations to that because there's multiple steps in there and stuff like that. So the solution that we often recommend is like apply turn taking. So make it really human centric, manage some expectations. So tell the person there's like 4 things you have to go through. Use discourse markers like, first of all, there's this, second of all, there's that, and then use a lot of confirmation like, did you get that? Is that clear? Ready for the next step? And use clear prompts. So here it's exactly the same. So it says, can I keep using my phone? All right, there's a couple of things to check. Let's go over them together. Do you have a minute? Sure. Okay, first thing, you know how to do that. This also creates a lot of problem solving within the flow, because like, oh, I don't know how to enable data roaming, and you just offload them to the intent how to switch on data roaming, etc. So this works really well. And a funny thing about this here is that a lot of people who are just kind of glancing over your shoulder will say, but that takes like way more effort for the customer, right? So that's a bad experience. That's a bad customer journey, because here they ask a question and hey presto, they have their answer. Great experience, right? Whereas here they have to like click a couple of times and then read separate bubbles. Funnily enough, our human brain is wired to make this really difficult and this really easy. That's because when we talk with each other, well, except for when I'm giving this lecture, but we turn take, right? We know that the discussion, a successful discussion, usually goes back and forth, and our mind really doesn't track the amount of steps it takes. It just tracks the overall peak effort of any moment of the conversation. So there's like the stress moments of a conversation are way more important than the length or the number of easy things you have to do. So here it's like a lot of text, a lot of density, and there's like stress, right? I need to parse all this information, I need to remember it, need to do something with it. It's too much. Here, there's just no stress, right? It's like super simple. And you could even create like fake buttons if you have buttons in your chatbot. It's like like after you've done the first step, it's like the first thing. Yeah, you want to do yes, and it's like it could be always yes, that just to continue, or you could put continue or more or next step as a button, just to break up the information and to make it easy to process. So that's like what I also mean with the design framework as a personality, as a design framework. If your chatbot's going to be helpful and empathetic, it can't do this, right? This just, it just doesn't match the personality of your chatbot. But it can do this because this is helpful and it's empathetic because it's thinking, how do I help this customer achieve their goal?